Notice of this meeting is advertised in the local source and/or the Star Ledger, the newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins.
Here.
Mr. Benavides.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McNeil. Here. Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Rick Pitts is absent. Mr. Champion.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from January 17th and February the 7th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the meeting minutes of January 17th and February 7th be approved as written and dispense with their reading.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Mr. Manguso, at this time, are there any communications?
Oh, yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman, there are communications that council will address when called for both cases tonight.
All right, then we can proceed with tonight's meeting. Our first case this evening is calendar number 3431, the Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God, DBA, Living World Church, located at 2208 Stanley Terrace, Block 5404, Lot 17, 18, and 22.01. Applicant seeks overnight truck parking, which is not a permitted use in the CI zone. Mr. Hale, would you like to begin?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Stephen Hale, representing the applicant Ukrainian Church. As you recall, we were here some time back, and I had Pastor Nick give an overview of what the church was looking to do at the site. We indicated at that time that they were going to scale back the project, cut down the number of parking spaces there, and commit to the limited hours of operation of the proposed truck parking facility, and also no weekend, et cetera. We did send a letter into the board shortly after that meeting outlining those terms. We were waiting on revised plans from our engineer, Ed Deck. We did receive those yesterday. They were submitted in a cover letter to the board, and that may be one of the letters that Anthony was referring to. And then we have delivered now, I brought this evening, hard copies of those plans. So the reason we don't expect the board, we did notify our client and his supporters that were here at the last hearing that we would be seeking an adjournment this evening to give both the board professionals, Colliers, and the various departments an opportunity to review those revised plans. So I did have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Manguso, Mr. Pansula, and I think we were targeting July 24th, I believe it was.
I think that was the next available date.
Yeah.
The board has agendas. Yes, for the record, Mr. Chairman, Rob Pansula, Board Attorney. I did acknowledge the correspondence Mr. Hale referred to. It submitted the revised plans. It is dated yesterday, so we need time for Colliers to digest it. It seems to address the things that Mr. Hale had indicated, but obviously we should have the professionals review it, which is why we need the time. So it's a perfectly appropriate request for the adjournment. I assume Mr. Hale will acknowledge the waiver of any time constraints should they
Correct.
confront the board. So if we can, unless anyone has any questions, I believe we should carry that calendar number to July 24th with an announcement that no further notice will be issued at this time, and the meeting will be heard on that night or expected to be heard.
So noted, Mr. Pansula. Can I have a motion and a second to adjourn and reschedule tonight's meeting to tonight's case to July the 24th?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for calendar number 3431, Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God, Living World Church, 2208 Stanley Terrace, carried over to the next available day, which is July 24th, 2024.
Second motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Ms. Martins.
Yes.
Mr. Benavides.
Yes.
Ms. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. McNeil.
Yes.
And Mr. Champion.
Yes. For the benefit of the public, there will be no further notice of the meeting scheduled for July 24th. The meeting will be held in this room at 7:30 on July the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, and I will send, Rob, I'll send in a confirming letter to that effect, formally acknowledging the new date and the stipulation of the extension of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proceeding, our next case is calendar number 3430, located at 2936 Vauxhall Road, and it's for Vauxhall Road Associates LLC. Block 4703, Lot 15.01. Applicant seems to want to construct multifamily residence with 36 units, and this was carried from last week. Counselor, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you very much,
Just for
Mr.
the record,
Chairman.
Mr. Hale,
Yep.
before we begin, I believe Mr. Graves had told me before the meeting that he does live in the area and would indicate that he wanted to recuse himself from tonight's proceedings. So I suggested to him that was the proper move, so we would make the announcement. Mr. Graves will be recusing himself and not participate.
Sorry, Mr. Graves, good to see you, and hope you get somewhere that's air-conditioned. All right. Thank you again for coming out tonight.
Counselor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board members, Stephen Hale representing the applicant, 2936 Vauxhall Road Associates, and we appreciate the board giving us the opportunity to carry it from last week to this evening. As we indicated last week in our, where we just gave an overview, so we're starting the hearing this evening now, but yeah, this is an application for a multi-family building at this vacant site. It is in the NC zone, which in fact permits the multifamily. We're here, and our planner will address why we're before here, the Board of Adjustment, and the relief that we're seeking. As noted, the use is a permitted use, and you'll hear our professional planner expand upon this, and both our traffic engineer. It's our belief, and I think we'll provide clear testimony, that the proposed multifamily use is in fact one of the lower intense uses that is permitted in the NC zone. A number of years ago, we had this property, we were before the board, there was a medical office use, we had it approved, and unfortunately, there were no takers for that. We then came in and had approval for a child care facility. COVID hit. Primrose had come in here, got approved for a child care facility, and again, COVID put an end to that and quite a few other child care. And both of those uses would in fact generate more parking, traffic, noise, and the like than the proposed multifamily use. And when you look at the NC zone, and again, our planner will touch on this even more, the other uses in that zone are car washes, restaurants, bars, activities that could go on, again, 24/7 and generate quite a bit more traffic, parking, noise, and impact upon the neighborhood. So we feel that this is a great fit for the piece of property. It's been vacant for quite some time. We will have our professionals take us through the application. We'll have our engineer first take us through existing conditions and then what's proposed by way of improvements, our architect to take us through the floor plans and elevations, our traffic engineer to expand upon the traffic impact study, and then we're actually going to recall our engineer, who's also wearing the hat as our professional planner, to address the planning relief that we're seeking. By the way, we did work hard on the design of the project. We've had lengthy meetings with the township, and when we had our community outreach meeting sometime back over at St. Paul's Church with Bishop Campbell, the way this is designed with the parking underneath, behind, it buffers the parking. I believe some of the previous uses we're looking at putting a building in the front, parking behind the building and the like, surface parking. This is all parking underneath the building. We've designed it, we got feedback, we designed it with a turnaround in front for any, and a nice parking spot for trash pickup and delivery, so trash isn't going along the side of the building next to the residences. Also, which is the new, what happens in this day and age with deliveries, DoorDash and the like. There's a dedicated delivery spot, so when things come in, they're addressed there. If you recall originally, and I'll shut up after this, but originally there was some concerns that were raised by the fire department. We did have an opportunity to meet with the fire department, and we had gotten an email from the fire chief who indicated that he was okay with our revisions to the plans. Our architect will testify to those in more detail, but we did submit to the board the revised plans, so the board had an opportunity to actually see the plans. We will have testimony, but we did receive a letter from Captain Orlando Guzman, and I believe the board has received a copy of that, wherein he indicates that all fire departments' immediate concerns have been addressed and/or accommodated for. It's a short letter. Has that been supplied to the board?
Yes.
Okay, so you should have that in your package, and we appreciate the hard work of the fire department taking the time to meet with us, look over the revised plans, and I commend the fire department and Captain Guzman for their help. So that's an overview of the application, and if there's no preliminary questions, I know Rob will probably mark various exhibits. And I think you were going to acknowledge, I think, a letter that came in on this one too. So.
Yeah, for the record, I did mark the application as it was submitted A1. I marked A2, the 11-page site plan that Casey Keller had presented. A3 is the architectural plans of Lawrence Appel, consisting of 5 pages. And A4 currently is the stormwater management report as submitted. So we have A1 through A4, and we'll go from there. There are other communications. I'll address them probably at the time. There's a letter of support. I mean, the person couldn't come tonight, so I thought it's appropriate since the letter came in. It's from Lightstone, who was the property owner across the street, Jeffrey A. Dash. He wrote to the board members. He's the owner of the Milburn Mall located at 2933 Vauxhall Road. And he's received notification of the new apartment building on the vacant lot across the street from the mall. Unfortunately, he'll be unable to attend the meeting tonight because he's at a conference out of state. I do wish to indicate to the board my support for this new project. The property has been vacant for some time, and I welcome the development. The additional residents in the area will certainly help patronage at the Milburn Mall, which, as you are aware, is struggling with tenancies. Thank you, and I apologize that I'm unable to attend the meeting. So that was the communication reference that was addressed to the board, so I want to make sure technically it can't be cross-examined. It's kind of what we did at the last session, where we accepted commentary from the public without swearing them in. So it's just another thought about the application that came in.
Thank you, Mr. Pansula. All right, so what I'd like to do first is to call upon Michael Lanzafama from Casey and Keller, and his beginning testimony, he'll be wearing his engineering hat to again take us through existing conditions, and then he will move on to what's proposed by way of improvements and address the comments that we have received from Colliers.
Good evening, Mr. Lanzafama. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you can provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, just state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
My name is Michael Lanzafama. That's Lanzafama. I'm a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, and planner, licensed in the state of New Jersey. I'm a principal with the firm of Casey and Keller Incorporated, 258 Main Street, Milburn, New Jersey. I've testified before this board and numerous boards throughout the state and have been accepted with all 3 credentials: engineering, planning, and surveying. All my licenses are current, and
The board will accept his credentials.
Great.
Thank you,
you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Lanzafama, I know you're well familiar with this site, having worked on this project for quite some time. So if you could take the board through, again, existing conditions, through your plans, and then we can move on to what's proposed by way of improvements.
Certainly. What you have up on the screen at the moment is the cover sheet from the plan set. I'd like to just for a minute here, just zoom in on the aerial image so that you can get a good sense of, nope, sorry about that.
I think that was a touch screen too, so.
Yeah, Yeah, I was trying to,
If all else fails, Anthony will
yeah,
come and help.
There we go. So what you have on the aerial image that you see up on the screen, I don't know if I can make that a little bit bigger. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So the property in question, as Mr. Hale pointed out, is 2936 Vauxhall Road. It is tax lot 1501 in block 4703. Property fronts on the southwesterly side of Vauxhall Road and is approximately 150 feet northwest of Valley Street. The property has 100 feet of frontage along the front portion of the property, along Vauxhall Road, has somewhat of a narrow frontage. The property is extremely irregular in shape. As you can see, the blue line pretty much outlines the property itself, and you can see how there's many angles and jogs and narrowing of the property that causes certain practical difficulties in the development of the property. The property has an average depth of 395 feet and has a total land area of 40,289 square feet, or 0.925 acres. Moving on to the survey itself, you can see the existing site is vacant, except for there are some bituminous areas and gravel areas that have been used by contractors to store material over the years. The site historically had been used as a site contractor's yard all the way back to the 1950s, and subsequently has been vacant probably since we got our site plan approval way back when for the office building, and then occasionally been used by PSE&G and other utility companies to store their material while they did various projects in the area. The topography of the site is such that it rises up from Vauxhall Road to a point about 70 feet into the center portion of the site, and then flows towards the rear of the site, where it drains into an existing 15-inch storm sewer pipe at the very end of the property. This stormwater collection system then connects into the stormwater system on West Line Avenue. The property is not impacted by the floodplain or wetlands or steep slopes. There's no environmentally sensitive elements of the property that cause the property to be difficult to develop as we are proposing. The property is located in the NC Neighborhood Core District, which permits, among other things, multifamily structures, such as we're proposing here this evening, offices, retail sales and services, including things like car repair and car washes, restaurants, and or combinations of those things. You could do office buildings and then have apartments above. So we feel that what we're proposing here is probably the highest and best use given the location of the property, the size of the property, and the surrounding areas. Going back for a minute, let's go back up to the aerial image there. There we go. So as you can see from the aerial image, there's a variety of uses in and around the property. Immediately adjacent to the property is an office building and parking area. Further to the east, there's a funeral home as well as a large garage. There's a large parking area that extends all the way out to West Line Avenue. Across Vauxhall Road is the Milburn Mall with their large parking field. And one of the things we look at as planners is trying to find uses that coexist well and that support one another. And by putting multifamily apartments close to a shopping center, that in a way supports that shopping center because it puts feet on the ground, people that are going to shop, people that are going to frequent the restaurants and other services that might be located in the mall. And as you heard from the owner in his letter that he sent to the board, he supports our application for that very reason. And that's just good planning. We often see this done in downtown areas where many municipalities such as Westfield or Summit and Milburn to some extent, where they put apartments above the office space and above the retail centers. So it puts pedestrians on the ground in the neighborhood and in the area. Many of the properties that exist immediately adjoining the property further to above the property, immediately adjacent to that front on Valley Street are a mix of residential and commercial. There are two family houses fronting on West Line Avenue. Immediately adjacent to us there's a commercial building. I believe it's a medical acupuncturist, if I'm not mistaken. There's the building that you see right here that's adjacent to the property, as well as their parking area, which sits in the front of the property. Go to the zoning table here. So just running through the zoning table, this is the metrics that govern how the property is developed and how it meets certain elements of the zoning. The minimum lot area required for the NC zone is 15,000 square feet. We obviously exceed that substantially. We're at 40,289 square feet. The minimum lot width or frontage, we are currently, it's an existing non-conforming condition that we have. We have 150 feet are required. Our lot is 100 feet. The minimum lot depth is 100 feet, and we have over 395 feet. So we're compliant with regard to that. And as I stated earlier, the proposed use itself, the multifamily housing, is a permitted use within the zones. The proposal is to construct on the site. Let me just switch to our color rendering of the site plan. This gives you a better visual of the site and how we're developing it.
And was that previously submitted as a new exhibit?
Well, it was submitted electronically and was on the thumb drive, I believe.
Then we should probably mark that as
It was part of what was
A5.
marked as A2, I believe. It's a colorized
But
version.
it's colorized, yes,
of
so
the
we'll
site
note it as
plan.
A5, being a
Okay.
colorized portion of the site plan.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Let's get this over. Focus in, okay. And you can see what we're proposing here on the property is 3 stories of apartments above a ground floor garage space for a total of 4-story multifamily building. The building would have, as I said, ground floor parking, an entry lobby coming off the side portion of the building. There'll be utility rooms up towards the front. There'll be a mail room, package room, vestibule and lobby that'll lead to an elevator. Entrance into the garage area is from the front face of the building along Vauxhall Road. To access that garage, we've provided what we refer to as an eyebrow or a circular drive, the one-way traffic pattern that allows quick entry into the garage, and at the same time, we've provided an area, a backup area, loading area for things like Amazon deliveries, UPS deliveries, mail delivery, refuse pickup. So it's really convenient to have this. The vehicles pull in on the lower side of the driveway. They can pull up and then back into position and easily exit out towards Vauxhall Road. The building itself is going to have a total of 36 units, 7 one-bedroom units, 27 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. There's going to be 6 of those units are affordable units. And those are the units that provide for housing opportunities for people that are local, single moms, working professionals. They are definitely a goal of the state to provide that affordable housing throughout the entire state, not only in Union, but as I said, throughout the state. And we'll get into that a little bit later with the planning testimony, is when we talk about the positives of having this slightly increased density from what we're proposing is the additional affordable units that are yielded by the overall project. The parking garage itself provides parking for a total of 68 spaces. Most of the spaces, 42 of them, are standard 9x18 stalls, which are permitted under the residential site improvement standards. However, we are asking for a design waiver from one section of your ordinance, 170-2601A, which requires that 9x18 stalls must have a minimum of a 2-foot overhang. In some instances, we don't have that capability because the vehicles are parking in the garage against the garage wall. But 9x18 does work well and is what is permitted by the residential site improvement standards. We have 16 tandem parking arrangements. That's the area on the rear portion of the building where we have one parking spot in front of another, and these would be assigned to 2- and 3-bedroom units. This is not all that dissimilar from when you have a single-family house and you have a one-car garage and someone parks in the driveway. It's what I've lived with for 45 years at my house. My wife, of course, gets the garage and I park in the driveway. So we have to work that out as far as maneuvering in and out. But it works well. We've used it on other projects throughout the state and projects that have been constructed, and it works very well. We also have 3 ADA compliant spaces for handicap accessibility. We also are going to set up 6 EV charging stations, make them make-ready. We're not going to institute the putting in the chargers just yet. We're working that out with the fire department, but we will have them made ready so that in the future, once we can work a system out, we can activate them and make them available to the potential tenants of the space. Under the residential site improvement standards, as well as the township ordinance, we're required to have 66 spaces, so we're proposing 68, so we clearly meet the demand for parking. The structure itself has a building footprint of 22,767 square feet, or 56.5% of the total lot area. Under the ordinance, we're permitted 45%. So this is one of the variances we're seeking. And the rationale behind that was to get the entire parking area within the confines of the building. So to do that, we had to expand the building in certain areas, and as a result, the building footprint exceeds that permitted under the ordinance. However, it's important to note that the overall impervious coverage is below the 65% permitted by the ordinance. So it's a bit of a trade-off. We took, instead of having a surface parking area, reducing the size of the building, we decided to enclose it so that it better insulates the parking activities, opening and closing of doors, headlights, from the adjoining properties. So under the current design, we're at 26,149 square feet for total lot coverage. That includes what we call the eyebrow, the walkways, as well as the building coverage. That puts us at 64.9%, where 65% is permitted. The proposed structure is conforming to both the front setback as well as the rear setback. 35 feet is required for both front and rear yards. The front yard is at 39.2 feet, and the rear yard is set back at the 35 feet required. Under the ordinance, I just want to, again, review for you and summarize for you what the variances that we're seeking. The first is the existing non-conforming condition with regard to the lot width or lot frontage, 150 feet required versus 100 feet proposed. The second is a side yard setback. Now, that area occurs where the closest point, we've indicated it as 4 feet. No, come on. There we go. So you can see that it occurs at a single point and that the building quickly moves away from the lot line so that it's not a continuous setback violation. It occurs at a single point. So 35 feet is required, 4 feet is proposed. And I'd like to point out, if we had a different use on the property, or if we had a commercial use built within the building, the required setback would only be 10 feet. So it's because we're using a less intense, proposing a less intense use, we're being kind of hindered by the larger setback requirement, side yard setback requirement. The maximum building height permitted under the ordinance is 35 feet. We're at 49.42 feet as measured from the average grade, which because of the topography of the site and the way it drops towards the back, actually adds about 3 feet to that height. So the actual building itself from finished floor to the highest point is more like 46 feet. The maximum building height, 3 stories are permitted under the ordinance. We're at 4 stories proposed. And you'll hear from the architect about how he worked that into the design. By that I mean we kind of what they refer to as wedding caked the upper floor. And by that we mean is we pushed in and set back that of the upper levels from the edge of the building. So it's not one massive wall. It's a wall that articulates vertically. And you'll hear that from Mr. Appel when he describes his building to you. We talked about the maximum building coverage, 45% permitted, 56.5% proposed. The density permitted under the ordinance is 20 units per acre. We're at 36 units or 38.9 units per acre. We're also proposing a ground sign along the frontage along Vauxhall Road. Come on. There we go. There we go. One more. There we go. You can see the sign that we're proposing, and that's at 6 feet back from the right-of-way, whereas 15 feet is required. If we push the sign further back, it would be obscured by some existing vegetation and other buildings that exist along the streetscape, and I'll get into the planning proofs a little bit later on. We're also asking for waivers. The one waiver was the size of the parking stall, the lack of the 2-foot overhang. We're also asking for a parking waiver for setback to the building. 10 feet is required, and we're proposing 4.5, and that pretty much occurs up in the front of the building in this area where the delivery vehicle is. We're also required to have that parking area set back 10 feet from the property line, where it's actually only 1.5 feet at that one corner. We're also required to have a 4-foot-high evergreen screen. Instead, what we opted for was a solid fence that would provide the necessary screening and meet the intent of the ordinance, but at the same time, leave certain areas, lawn panels open for residents to perhaps sit in. Also, it allows for emergency services to access the perimeter of the building more easily. Just move on to, I also took the liberty of colorizing the landscape plan that is part of the submission.
Why don't we mark that then as
So that would be
A6.
A6. So the landscape plan, as can't see yet because it's too small. So there's a variety of plant materials being proposed along the streetscape as well as along the common boundary with the properties adjoining us. There's quite a variety of both perennials as well as deciduous trees and evergreen trees. There's there's a large existing shade tree that obviously will be retained at the front corner of the property, and the shrubs kind of enhance and really jazz up the front of the building. In the area towards the rear, again, we have the fence all the way around the perimeter to screen it off. We're proposing a bioretention basin at the rear of the property to handle stormwater management from the roof area of the building. The front portion of the property, what I've referred to as the eyebrow, is actually porous pavement. So that is what's considered green infrastructure as part of the new stormwater management regulations. And that not only handles water quality, but water quantity as well. The stormwater management design meets the standards for the current stormwater management regulations under the DEP as well as your own municipal standards. And what I mean by that is the state has now decided, and your ordinance has been updated to concur with the state's goal, is to not only meet the rainfall events that occurred today in the year 2024, but they provide us with an opportunity to design for a what-if scenario. What is going to happen in the year 2050? And what they've done is they've taken the standard rainfall events and they've put a multiplier to them so that our stormwater management systems not only have to meet the standards for today, the 2024 rainfall events, but also rainfall events that might occur in the year 2050 with global warming. We're anticipating that we're going to have more frequent heavy rainfall events, what we call microbursts, where we get sudden rainfall at large volumes. And what we've been able to do is not only meet those standards, but we've also met the requirement to reduce runoff rates from existing conditions. So we take the site as it currently exists, which is a mixture of lawn area, trees, gravel, some small areas of pavement, and we take that runoff rate that exits the site through the stormwater collection system in West Line Road, and for the 2-year storm, we're cutting that more than 50%. We're cutting that well in half. For the 10-year storm, we're reducing it by 20%, and for the 100-year storm, 25%, and for the 100-year storm by 20%. And not only are we doing that for today, but we're doing that for the year 2050 as well. So the stormwater design is truly going to enhance the area. It will mitigate any of the issues associated with the increased roof surface area. But again, as I mentioned before, our overall impervious area is compliant. But in any event, the new design, the new plan, the improvements proposed will definitely enhance not only the stormwater quantity, but the quality as well. We did receive a memo from Colliers. What was the date on that? I got it right here. I have a date of March 27, 2024. There's a number of issues that are items that Mr. Hatterer had indicated. I believe we're certainly willing to comply with everything that might need some additional work, but most of his comments were basically that, for example, based upon our sanitary sewer flow rates, we don't need what's called a treatment works approval. We're less than 8,000 gallons a day. The water supply system is going to be adequate, and you'll hear from the architect about how the building is going to be fully sprinklered, and that there are no issues that we can't comply with regard to this memorandum. And I believe that's all I have with regard to testimony from an engineering perspective.
And just briefly, you were talking about the stormwater. At the present time, the site has no stormwater control systems, all sheet flows.
Well, it gets collected by that one 15-inch pipe at the rear of the site.
Okay. I have no further preliminary questions of Mr. Lanzafama at this time.
Are there any board members that would like to question the testimony Mr. Lanzafama has given?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of questions. One is concerning the parking. You said you're providing for 68, and that includes the 6 EVS charging spaces.
Mhm.
But you're not going to make them active or
Correct.
usable. According to Collier's letter, you need 71. So if you're only providing 68, and you're not going to make the electrical charging stations active, are you taking the credit for
We-
those
we
even though
are-
they're not?
Yeah, the law, the way we interpreted the law was that if they're made ready, you get the credit. So we're making them ready, we're providing the conduits, the electrical work, everything will be set up, but they just won't be electrified just yet. And we believe that according to the law, you still get the credit for those stations. So 70, we calculated 70 cars required, but 71 surrounding of numbers.
So
Yeah,
0.3 or
yeah,
0.2,
yeah. We're just
everybody rounds up, right?
Yes. So 71 less the 6, that's where we came up with the 65 required.
And the other question is concerning we're almost doubling the allowable unit per acre density. Is there any concern on the additional burden that we're putting on the utilities? I know you said that you check your water flows and all of that, but once it leaves the property site, is that going to put any additional, have you looked at what that does to
Yes.
the town and whether or not the town?
Yeah, we looked at the sanitary sewer system that's right in Boxall Road. It turns out that this system is pretty much like right at the end of the line. We're like the first building to go into that line. So the line has more than adequate capacity to handle I think we have like 7,500 gallons per day we're going to be generating from the 36 units. So the piping system is more than adequate. The treatment plant has more than adequate capacity. Water supply in the system is more than adequate. So we feel very confident that this will not have a negative impact on existing utilities.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Mr. Lanzafama? Hearing none. Are there any members of the public that would like to question Mr. Lanzafama's testimony? Now, it's just questioning his testimony, not making a comment. Comments will be later on. Do you want to ask him a question? Sure. Would you come forward?
My name is Ford Patterson, Patterson. You mentioned it's going to be 36 total units, you said, right?
That is correct.
And of that amount, how many multi-bedrooms?
Multiple bed, how many two-bedroom units?
Yes.
Three-bedroom units? I believe there were 27 two-bedroom units and 2 three-bedroom units. So
And you-
29.
What floor will they be on?
They'd be intermixed among all the floors.
The building does, the site does have an elevator, right?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. Patterson?
Will there be an elevator there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have another question too, but I wait for that one. That's not for him.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Patterson. Are there
Mr.
any other
Lanzafama,
members of the
we-
public?
We heard a lot of commentary at the last hearing. It wasn't in the record, just so you, and just maybe to cut to the chase a little, is there any doubt in your engineering expert mind that the site is being approved from a drainage standpoint? I know the neighboring property owner, I believe, is here tonight, has experienced some water in the basement and other issues. Do you see, as the engineer, an improvement here based on what exists, say, 10 years ago, or even as previously approved with the new DEP standards, that this site will show an improvement for the area as opposed to a detriment?
It absolutely will.
Okay.
There'll be, the runoff is better controlled in the new design. The roof water is contained within the bio basin at the end of the property, so I don't see any negative impact to any adjoining property owner.
And if anything, that might assist the area because you're
I-
tackling water that currently is not being handled in that
Correct,
capacity.
it'll improve that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Come forward, yes.
Andrew Bross, 965 Valley Street. You mentioned that
Would
you
you please
thought,
spell your name? for the record?
B-R-O-S-S. Oh, B-R-O-S-S. You mentioned that you felt that this project would help the mall across the street working in symbiosis, let's say.
Mhm.
Are you aware of the current businesses that are there?
I know there's a
It's
burger
a
place.
yes or no?
There's-
Yes or no? Do you know the
Yes,
business?
I know some of them.
Okay. Do you know why Melovino closed in that mall?
I have no idea.
Flooding. That's all I want to say.
Another question.
Yeah, one more, Steve.
Hello, I'm Tina Kim, for the record. Hi.
Hi.
We use Casey and Keller also. I'm the building right next door.
Yes.
So my question is, what is the distance between my building and the wall that, in the front of the that meets against my side?
Yeah, if you can, your building, I believe, is about 5 feet off the property line. And give this a chance to rejuvenate here. There we go. I don't know why that screen is there. Okay, no, I don't know why that's on there, but in any event. So you can see that your building is the, we added a little shadow there. That's not the actual setback of the building. The building itself is back here. That's 5 feet. And then at this location, you could see the building is set back probably about 15 feet at that point. So you have about 20 feet between the face of the building at this location and your building.
Okay, 15 feet. And then, so 5 feet, so
So you
a
have
total
20
of
feet
20
between.
And also, you mentioned the fence. Would that fence be behind the landscaping between our properties?
Yeah,
'Cause
the
there's
the
currently a
fence would
fence
be
there.
on the property line, a few inches off the property line. So there'd be your building, the fence, and then the landscaping.
And so currently, because in the front, right now, we do have like a vinyl fence
Mhm.
towards towards the building area. But you had mentioned the material of the fence, I thought I heard.
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but I should have. It's a solid fence. It's most likely going to be a vinyl material.
So would that extend to the front of the property where that eyebrow is?
It would stop right at the face of the building, right about here.
Okay, so then I would also want to know how tall the signage is that you're proposing at the front of the building?
You mean the monument sign?
Yes.
I'd have to check the detail on that. Let me go back to here. I don't know if that's is that on the site plan or was that on the detail sheet?
The variance for the sign is just for the location, or not the size,
Right,
correct?
not the size, but I was trying to see if I have that detail on my detail sheet. There we go. Yep. So the sign is 5 feet high.
And then also in that eyebrow, school buses would be expected to come in and out of that eyebrow?
No. They could fit there. We've done an analysis, but most likely that wouldn't happen. I
Where
would
will
imagine
kids be picked?
kids would be picked up at the street, I would assume, like any other school bus. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't know how the Township of Union operates their busing system, whether or not they go on to private property or do they stay on the public roadways.
Okay, and what about garbage pickup?
A garbage pickup would be done through the eyebrow. They're able to come in, back into position. There is, within the building, a series of trash chutes on the upper floors that come down into a trash room where everything is compacted. The maintenance people would then wheel it out to the garbage truck, and then the garbage truck would be able to exit.
And I'm also wondering about guest parking. Oops, sorry, is that me?
The way the parking garage is situated or is designed, let me go back to the site plan. Give me a second to get there. There we go. Okay, there we go. So during the day, this gate, which is at the garage door, will be open. And the public, visitors, would be able to park in the front portion of that parking garage. Towards the back, we have a second gate that's controlled by the tenants with a key fob. And that would open up, and that would be what we call secured parking. So there's 49 secured parking spots and 19 parking spots that are available for visitors.
So for 36 apartments, you've got 49 parking spots?
Yes. Well, they'll be able to use the 19 as well. Those aren't restricted just to visitors. The tenants will be able to use those as well. So, after hours, then they'll be able to park in that spot too if they choose to.
Is there any proposed sort of like flashing light or anything for residents of this property to cross to Milburn Mall? Because it's a county road and it's pretty fast
Not at the current time, no.
Okay, my other question is, what happens, where is delivery mailman going to park when somebody is in that one delivery spot? I know it sounds crazy, but this actually happens to us. Our delivery people could never find us.
That's why the eyebrow, you could have, say for example, the garbage truck is here, even though it's highly unlikely, you're going to have the garbage truck and the mailman or UPS guy coming at the same time. But if there were a garbage truck here or a UPS truck and a second Amazon truck showed up, they would be able to parallel park here, run into the mailroom and exit. They're usually there only for a few minutes. And by parking here, you still have access to the garage.
So the delivery people should be going into their garage also?
No. The parallel park here, they're able to walk into the lobby and vestibule area and into the mailroom here. So they're walking along the sidewalk, along the side of the building and entering on the side.
Got it, okay. I understand, I think I understand the plans.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Ma'am, would you spell your name, just for the record? I didn't get it.
Tina, Tinna. My last name is Kim, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward and question Mr. Lanzafama's testimony? Hearing none, Counselor?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Lanzafama. I'd now like to call upon our architect, Larry Appel, to take us through the architectural plans for the project.
Maybe push the mic closer. Good evening, Mr. Appel. Can I just ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you can provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
For the record, state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
My name is Lawrence Appel, Appel. I'm principal of Appel Design Group Architects. We're located on 23 Reland Road in Florham Park. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering and a Master's in Architecture. I'm here as an architect this evening. I'm licensed in New Jersey since 1992. Also New York, Pennsylvania, and NCARB. I have, my office used to be in Union on Morris Avenue for many years. I've appeared before Union, but not recently. But as
The
well.
board will accept his credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Appel, I know we've been working for quite some time on this project,
Yes.
meeting with the township professionals. So if you could take us through the architectural aspects of the property.
So just to get, I have one new exhibit. I just wanted to
Sure.
get that tagged first.
That'd be A7 and.
A7, which is a photorealistic color rendering showing proposed colors and materials. And I believe you've already tagged my architectural drawing set as A-3. Is that
Correct.
Okay, good. And this is, what I have here is not changed. It's exactly what you have in your packages. So, yes, I've been involved with this project from the inception. We've been working very closely with Mr. Lanzafama and the other consultants, and we're very excited to get feedback and suggestions from the township. We really appreciate the input that we got because we believe the township professionals help us make this project better. Mr. Lanzafama gave a pretty good overview of the site and site features. One of the things that we work very closely to optimize the site because it does have limited frontage. So I'm going to refer to drawing PB-1.2. So as mentioned, the project is 4-story. Keep in mind that the ground floor is almost entirely parking. The parking, as was discussed, there's a front area shared for guests and residents, and the rear is secured and typically is assigned to specific residents with fob access. We've utilized tandem stalls, as was discussed. The tandem stalls will always be assigned to a single apartment. So it's very similar to what Mr. Lanzafama had explained. The lobby is located at the side, so I'm going to point on the side area, which allows access for both of the front area of the garage and the rear area of the garage. Trash, this was an important amenity. I want to just give a little more information. Each floor of the building will have a trash room and a chute which will convey trash from that trash room down into a compactor. So this is the best way to deal with this. There's no dumpster. You don't have to leave trash in the hallway. You don't have to carry trash and recycling down the elevator. Yes, there was the question raised, this is elevator service building, but this is the gold standard. It eliminates odors, it compacts trash, it makes this very efficient. It reduces the frequency that the trash hauler has to come and service the site. And they will use small rollout containers, as Mr. Lanzafama had explained. The trash hauler will park. Typically, they will either scavenge those containers, or a superintendent will pull them out and bring them over to the truck. Recycling is handled a little bit differently. So it's usually collected in the trash room. We provide bins. There will be a staff person that will bring those bins down to collection at the garage level, and then again putting containers and brought out for the hauler to pick up. So also, we've accommodated what you would expect in a building like this. This is state-of-the-art. It's going to have a mail room. It's going to have a package room. These are the type of amenities that are anticipated and expected. On the floor plan, there's just a faint red line that you can just see, and that is important to notice. That is the upper profile of the building. So the ground floor covering the parking is a little bit larger than the upper areas. This was done intentionally, and this was actually a suggestion by the professionals at the township. And the reason for this is that the building would no longer appear to be on stilts and with cars parked half under and half outside and half under the building. It's fully concealed. The benefits of this is less light spill off, less noise, more attractive facade, and another important feature is that it better accommodates snow removal, because you no longer have snow competing and having to move snow by hand out from under the building. The building will have a small generator. This is typically to service security, access to the garage, and some lighting in case of emergencies. It's not a whole building generator. This is a small generator. The first floor is, which is shown directly below here, is rather typical. We've utilized the space created by the extended podium. So all these dark areas are actually not part of the building, but they will be outside terrace areas that could be used by the residents inside those apartments. I'm going to switch to drawing PB 1.3. So the 36 units are spread out on the floors. Mr. Lanzafama had gone through the unit count. There's a tabulation on the cover page of the drawings that indicate where each of those units are distributed. Several of the apartments have dens. This has become a very important feature in design now because these dens provide a place for people to work from home, as many of us do. So our proposal is that 6 units will be for affordable housing. These are integrated into the design and dispersed as well. I'm going to go to, on drawing PB 1.3 on the lower image, is the upper floor. We've called this a penthouse because it's not an entire floor. The penthouse started out just with an idea that we were going to provide some amenity space for the residents, a roof deck, and a small community room as well. These have become very important spaces for residents now. This has been the trend and is the, I don't want to say like state of the art, but it's almost an expectation for renters now to have some of these amenities. So by putting the amenity space up here and the outside roof terrace, it created a need to bring the stairs and the elevator up to the roof. And as soon as you brought these up in here, we have one stair that's on one side, and then an elevator in the middle, and then a stair on the other side. And it would have been a rather weird configuration to have just the amenity space. So what we tried to do is we tried to infill between these to create a couple of units to create a little bit more purpose for that, that floor. But most important, so it was to create a balance with the design and infill the space, but more importantly, if you can see these dark areas at the front and the rear and actually wrapping around the whole rear portion of the building in here, is we've created a wedding cake type of massing. So this upper floor is set back and it softens the impact, and that's why we called it a penthouse rather than a whole floor. It's only a partial floor. And we believe that this was successful in design, and also that we feel it's also a creates a needed amenity for residents. The dark areas to the front and the rear also serve as areas to provide condensing units. So rather than placing them around the perimeter of the property on the ground, we believe that it will be better to place these up on the roof out of view. I'm now going to go to PB-1.1, and when you look at the side elevation, you can see the effect of where that upper floor steps back from the front and rear of the facades. We've also noticed that we don't have a flat wall. We have lots of jukes and jogs. We've tried to create some architectural interest for the project as well. So I'm going to switch to a color rendering. I don't know that this was, I don't believe this was submitted as part of your package, so this is rather, is a new exhibit in here. If there's any interest, I do have a small copy if it's helpful to pass these around.
So we would mark this as A8?
Well, it's identical to
Oh, okay.
what's on the screen, so I just thought, I wasn't sure, you know, whether
Okay.
it's easy
That's the
for
photo,
all of you to see.
the one you referenced, A7, that's the.
That was
render?
A7 then?
Yep.
Okay,
So that's
thanks.
A7.
Yes. So this drawing shows color and material. We look to create a transitional vibe, both traditional architectural materials and details, but also clean lines, and we believe it's appropriate and not fussy. The materials proposed are all high quality, very low in maintenance. The key here is we wanted a building that would look good at the beginning and also stay looking good because there was not a lot of maintenance required. There were a lot of details were not overlooked. We took a lot of time and attention to make sure the details were right. Things like we utilized in the facade, on the sides and the rear, 2 different siding colors. And we did that because we felt that it would help demask the facade. We've incorporated balconies as well as balconettes. Balconettes are just decorative balconies that you can't walk out on. And because these balconies, they're closer to property lines, we have elected to use downlights rather than conventional lanterns so that there would be no glare coming off the building due to the balconies. Now, despite that the ground floor is essentially all parking, and some lobby and some other support functions, is we believe that the building, due to the way it's placed on the property, that it's relatively close to the street, all of these create positive elements. It's a pedestrian-friendly building. We believe it's an activated facade. It doesn't look like a parking lot. And that was something that we felt was quite important here. And as well as what Mr. Lanzafama had indicated, is that it's designed to handle visitors and delivery as well. So I'm going to skip back to the architectural drawings for a bit, and I'm going to go to drawing number 1.4. And these was just to indicate that these are conceptual layouts of typical apartments. We've included typical market apartments and typical affordable apartments. One thing that is common to both of these is that they both have their own heating and air conditioning systems. So each apartment has its own furnace and with heating and air conditioning, and each has its own washer and dryer. And these are starts on the concept. Once we deal with the structural and mechanical and all the engineering, some of these layouts will get modified a bit, but these are pretty good depictions of what the units will look like with dimensions and rooms and kitchens, etc. We were very happy to get some comments from the fire official, Captain Guzman. He had raised 5 safety issues that we addressed and responded to, and that was the reason why we reissued these drawings, is to respond to Captain Guzman's comments. So these included that while this building's not required to have a full NFPA 13 sprinkler system, it's by code is only required to have a residential version of this. But what we are proposing here, based on Mr. Guzman's comments and concerns, was to have a full NFPA 13 fire suppression system. In addition, we have located around the perimeter several doors and openings so that these will aid first responders and firefighters in having access to the building. We have also agreed and located on the drawings a 2-hour firewall that will separate the building half and alarm. These fire doors close and it compartmentalizes the building, which Mr. Guzman thought would be helpful and enhance life safety. In addition, what was suggested was to enlarge the stairway so that it provides an area of refuge, so a safety area within the stair construction, which is a higher fire rating than the rest of the building. And this provides an area of refuge so that if there were an emergency, that a resident can be there in a safe place waiting for a first responder to rescue them. Item number 5 in here was to provide standpipes in each of the stairwells. And then Mr. Lanzafama had explained is that there was a provision that the EV charging would be make-ready until such time that they were needed. And this was also a request by Captain Guzman. That's all I have for my testimony this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Appel. I have no further, again, preliminary questions at this time, Mr. Chairman and board members.
Are there any board members that would like to question the testimony Mr. Appel has given?
I just have the plans. I couldn't make out where the trash rooms were on the individual floor plans.
Would you like me to point that out?
Would you please?
Sure. So I'm going to just, it doesn't matter which floor. But-
It's a common chute on all 3 floors, right?
Yes, oops. So where it says, oops, where it says TR, that is just an abbreviation for trash.
Okay.
And those all stack floor to floor with a chute.
Way too small for these eyes.
Are there any other board members with questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you confirm if these dens have closets or windows in them?
Most of the dens will not have windows just by design. So what we're proposing on here is that these are not intended to be bedrooms. They are extra rooms. They would not have their own closets in here, and I think in all cases, I believe that they will not have windows either.
Any other board members with questions? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony Mr. Appel has given?
Yes, Mr. Bell. You mentioned a very, very sophisticated, I guess, trash removal or trash disposal system. Who pays for that? Is that done by that collection done by the town? Is that done by a private collector?
Typically, it's a private hauler.
Typically?
Yeah.
It will be private.
Thank you. Just want to know, because the other thing, the color rendering you had up there, that one.
Yes.
You have a side view of that?
I don't have a separate side view, and I wish I could
Can you
spin
turn
this
it?
around and rotate it. I
All
can.
right, that's my question. That's it, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward?
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to know, in the design, how come parking wasn't put in the basement, or if there is a basement?
So what was discussed normally in here is that in order to have basement level parking, you need to be able to ramp down. There's just not adequate space to ramp down in here in a meaningful way. Plus, the rear part of the property, as I understand, the topography falls off as well, so that it would require quite a deep excavation.
I didn't see any renderings of outdoor space for the residents. So is there any place that these residents will be spending outdoors, outside of this, on the property?
So we did have up on, I will refer to the upper level, there's an outdoor amenity space, an indoor amenity space, and this hatched area is an outdoor amenity space. We've shown it's about a little over 2,000 square feet.
So it's up on the 4th floor? Is that
Correct.
like barbecue area?
It's not fully programmed about what would go there. It's passive recreation, so typically it's seating areas. It could have a grill, but this is all set back. Again, part of the wedding cake concept is that it's set back from the sides of the building, so it's not overlooking the side, any of the perimeter sides of the building and the facades. It's set back and it's in the center.
I'm also wondering, just because I told Jerry that I used to live at the Avalon here in Union, and we had like a fire pit there. Is that also something that's part of your plans? Because I know it was part of their plans.
We haven't gotten that far, so normally what happens is that there's a sales and marketing team that will kind of look and compare with all the competitors and try and find the right blend to provide the right kind of amenities, and they will usually advise us of that kind of detail. But it's not going to be like a pickleball court or something noisy up there. It's passive.
You also mentioned pedestrian. So if the building is expecting pedestrian traffic, where are they going? Like, there's not much public transportation in the area. Where are they catching the bus? Where are they getting a cab? Where are they taking the train?
So when I say pedestrian, is that our feeling is that having a building, with sidewalks in the front, I think that this, with the right type of development, this would be a very walkable street. Right now, because of the gaps, it doesn't feel that way. So our hope is with projects like this is that it will generate some pedestrian activity.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward and question the testimony? Hearing none, Mr. Hale?
Thank you, Mr. Rappel. I'd like now to call upon Joseph Steiger, our traffic engineer.
Good evening, Mr. Steiger. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, state and spell your name with your affiliation.
Yes, Joseph Steiger, Staigar, 17 Tremont Drive, East Hanover, New Jersey.
Okay, and Mr. Steiger, I know you've been before this board on many occasions, but if you briefly confirm your credentials and that your license are in full force and effect.
Right. Bachelor of Science degree and Master of Science degree, Civil Engineering, New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've been an adjunct professor of traffic engineering courses at NJIT, professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey, and professional planner as well. I'm here tonight as a traffic engineering expert, for which I've testified numerous occasions.
Board will accept his credentials, Mr. Hale.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Steiger, if you could take us through the your analysis of traffic, circulation, parking, and the like.
Yes. Did prepare a traffic impact study for this, and basically it's broken down into 3 parts. Evaluation of existing conditions, assessment of proposed conditions, and then working hand in hand with the engineer and architect to develop a plan that is safe and efficient in terms of traffic flow, pedestrian flow, vehicular traffic flow as well. We went out and we took traffic counts, and we actually compared them from 3 other sources. New Jersey DOT has traffic counts on Vauxhall Road, and there was a previous application in the year 2000 for the daycare center. So in between, we've had some issues with COVID and traffic flow volumes due to that. So more recently, this past year, our firm took traffic counts as well along Vauxhall Road, compared them all, and it's actually a little bit lower today than it was pre-COVID. So we use the higher volumes to do further assessment. So traffic counts that were taken in 2018 were higher than they were in 2024. So again, we use the previous counts, 2018 higher counts. Secondly, trip generation. The ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, develops trip generation rates for different types of land uses. And that's the Bible in the industry. DOT uses it, your county engineer, your township engineer uses that same document for projecting what future projects will generate in terms of traffic. One of those land uses is multifamily uses in the setting of a mixed-use development area. We do have the shopping mall nearby, and in addition to office buildings in the area, we do have mass transit. There are 3 bus lines within reasonable walking distance of the site. So we do have a fair amount of different types of uses and different types of modes of transportation. As the previous experts talked about, we do have a complete sidewalk system, good interconnectivity of sidewalks and so forth. There is Davis Park, which is within reasonable walking distance, basketball court and some other amenities there. So there is opportunity for recreation in the area of walking distance as well. The 36 units will generate, using the ITE trip generation rates, will generate 14 trips in the morning peak hour, 14 trips in the evening peak hour. Seems to be very low volume for 36 units. How you come up, Mr. Steiger, with 14 trips? Well, as we all know, our commutation patterns have changed since pre-COVID. We've learned how to telecommunicate. We've learned how to work at home. So the trip generation rates have gone down in more recent years. In addition to that, it's sort of different strokes for different folks. Some people start 6:30 in the morning, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe work night shift. Others may not start until 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, or later than that if they're going out to meetings while working from home. So what we've seen is a tendency for people to stay home more often to do their work, which has reduced trip generation. So what that boils down to is 14 trips for this 36 units during an hourly rate. This is not the 3 or 4 hour time period that they actually will be commuting. This is the peak hour, the 1 hour rate. I'd like to make a point of comparison to the former approvals. Now, I realize that those approvals have since been eliminated, disbanded, so to speak, or expired. But this was used as a contractor yard for a time being, with construction equipment, employees parking there and going in and out. Medical office use also was approved on this site, and more recently was the child daycare center. The child daycare center would generate over 150 trips per hour. And the reason being is that for every child that's attending, the parent or guardian pulls in, drops that child off, and then pulls out. So for every child, you generate 2 trips in that hour. And it's more condensed primarily to a 2-hour period. So you take that total amount of traffic and it's condensed to 2 hours. But the point being is that what this site was approved for, utilized previously for, was far more traffic than what's being proposed. Over 150 trips compared to 14 trips is more than 10 times the volume of traffic, or 10 times less is what's being proposed than what was previously approved. In addition to that, many of the permitted uses would generate far more intensity in traffic and parking, noise, and other potential nuisances. Certainly a restaurant or a tavern bar would generate more traffic than what the proposal is about. And those are permitted uses, so I'm just making that comparison. We do have a density variance, and that density is the difference between 20 units per acre, 20 units versus 36. So the difference is 16 units. If we were 16 units less, we would be compliant in terms of density. That relates to 6 trips. That's 1 trip every 10 minutes during the peak hours. So the benefits that this project brings to the table, to the board, to the township, certainly far outweighs any detriments. You'll hear more from that from Mr. Lanzafama in his planning testimony. But the point being is that the difference of 6 trips is really minuscule or de minimis in terms of having any impact. Without taking that credit and taking the 14 vehicles that'll come in and out during the peak hours, we operate level of service D. Now D is levels of service are operational characteristics. How much delay will it take in order to come into the site or leave the site? And just as in grade school, A through F are the levels of service. I'm sure you've heard it from other traffic engineers or myself. We're in that D range during the peak hours, which is an acceptable level of service. Lastly, the conclusion of that is that this site will not have a detrimental impact on traffic conditions in the area and is far less intensive than former approvals, former use of the site, and permitted uses in this zone. And then lastly, you've heard from Mr. Lanzafama, we are compliant in the parking. A couple of minor variances, 9 by 20 or an 18-foot depth of a parking space plus 2-foot overhang. We don't provide the 20 feet, we don't provide the 2 feet. You've heard from Mr. Lanzafama. For the reasons for that, it's just the dimensions of the site that disallow for that. But I have to say that 9 by 18 is a standard. It meets the RSIS requirements for minimum size for parking spaces. So I believe any granting of any variance related to that will certainly still allow the site to operate safely and efficiently. And number of parking spaces, we are compliant. We're not asking for any type of deviations from that as well. Just want to make one small correction in terms of the EV spaces. You need to provide 15% of the parking spaces that are provided have to be EVs. Mr. Lanzafama testified to 6 spaces, but that actually works out to 11 spaces. 15% of 68 of the spaces that we're providing works out to 11 EVs. And of that, 10%, we can take credit of parking of 10% of what's required. 72 spaces are required, so we can take credit for 7 spaces. His testimony doesn't change other than the number of EV spaces a little bit more than per statute than his testimony, but doesn't change the conclusions. We still meet the parking requirements. And to answer Mr. McNeil's question about the make ready, those 11 spaces will be phased in. The phasing means that 1/3 of them will be built upon occupancy, and then 3 years, another third, and then in another 3 years, the following third. The statute takes into account that we're expecting to see the usage of electric cars to increase. Right now, they feel that the 1/3 of the 11 is going to be sufficient for a development such as this based on what's on the road today. But as time goes on, in 3 years and another 3 years, we'll see an increase of electric uses. So the state statute, in their wisdom, our administrators in their wisdom felt that that was a good way to phase it in. Put all the wiring in, the conduits, just the mechanism itself will not have to be put in until the 3 years, and then the additional 3 years in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steiger.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, no further questions at this time?
Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Steiger's testimony?
Just two.
I hope I answered one of them.
Almost. I almost struck it
okay.
out. Traveling, I guess that's westerly on Vauxhall Road.
Towards Milburn.
Right. Are you allowed to make left-hand turns into the building?
Yes, in fact, in that direction, there are 2 lanes of traffic. So if someone had stopped momentarily to make that left-hand turn, other vehicles could bypass them in that additional lane.
Yes, but there's 2 lanes, so now they'll be reduced down to one while they're
lane.
waiting on him to turn, right?
Correct.
Has that been looked at and how
Well,
that
yeah,
affect
I mean,
downflow?
yeah, the level of service, so I talked about level of service D, that's getting out of the driveway, making a left or a right, which is more difficult, because you're looking for 2 ways of a gap in traffic. When you're making that left-hand turn, that is only, you only need a gap in 1 lane of traffic or 1 direction of traffic. When we do the calculations, that actually, and I forgot, I neglected to mention, that operates at level service A. So that left turn will be able to be made on average less than 10 seconds. So the backup is going to be minimal at that location.
And just for edification, how many levels of service?
There are A
to
through F
Z,
is
A to
6.
F.
Yeah, A through F, I'm saying we're approaching the lower level, but Vauxhall Road is a busy road, and there is capacity, reserve capacity to allow this minimal amount of traffic, 14 trips per hour, and still not degrade. So it doesn't change the level of service, I'll say, the minimal amount of traffic that we're going to generate.
Any other board members? Hearing none. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward and question just the testimony that Mr. Steiger has given? Mr. Bross?
Just out of curiosity, when was the study in 2024 conducted?
In February.
Can you specify the dates in February?
I'm sorry.
Specify the dates in February?
Yeah, let me refer to my traffic report. I'm sorry, it was January, and I'll give you the date if I can find it. You know, I neglected to put it in my report. I'll have to go through my file, but it was a typical weekday. We don't do it during snowstorms or rainstorms or anything like, or holidays. So, and we try to get the mid part of the week as well, which we've done, I'm sure. So it's a typical day.
Does the study go from like 9 a.m. to 5
Oh,
p.m.? Is it a
good
24-hour
point.
cycle?
Very good point. We know when the peak hours occur, and typically they're the rush hours. We really don't care what happens 2 o'clock in the morning or even 2 p.m. or unless there's a school nearby and vehicles get out. But what we find 99.9% of the time, the peak hours occur between 7 and 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m. So we conducted them during those time periods to get the peak hour of the roadway, because the residential use is coincidental. The peak hour of residential use is coincidental with the peak hour of the roadway. They both happen at the same time. Majority of people will be going to work in the morning, 7 to 9, coming back between 4 and 6.
Okay. And were any studies conducted on how it would affect the side streets such as Valley Street or going into Milburn Ave?
No, other than I made that assessment by comparing it to what was already the site was used for, what it was approved for, and what it could be permitted for, which all 3 of those aspects generate far more traffic than what's being proposed with the 36 units. That in itself tells me that there'll be less impact than what is permitted by your zoning ordinance, or what other approvals were for, or what other usage was used on the site.
Okay, and does the 14 point whatever percentage, does that factor in different changes societally, such as Uber Eats, increases in Amazon deliveries?
It includes all traffic. The actual trip generation rates that are based on all traffic that enter and or exit the site. So it includes guests, it includes deliveries, includes the garbage truck that might show up that morning, so forth.
Okay, and you mentioned that the ability to make left turns out of the complex, since it'll be perpendicular to the Milburn Mall, were there any studies done on how that's going to interact or affect traffic as well?
You're saying the
When someone's making
driveway,
a left out of the inner eye, how that's going to interact with it being directly across the street from the exit and entrance to the Milburn Mall?
yes, because those traffics that were making left out of the mall were included in the traffic volumes during the peak hours. So when I did the level service D, it included those left turns as well.
Okay, that's all I have.
Ms. Kim?
Hi. I just wanted to correct, my title is doctor. I wanted to ask about the impact of traffic with school buses. We had mentioned earlier in testimony that school buses would potentially be stopping on Vauxhall Road, and so how would that impact traffic in both Milburn and further down in Union?
Well, just as in any roadway, the safety of the children is far more important than the minimal delay that's caused by the school bus stopping. So how will it impact? It'll stop traffic both directions while the stop sign is up and the lights are turning red and the child gets on or off the bus.
So I'm thinking it's a 36 apartment unit apartment building, so there's going to be multiple children getting on and off each bus twice a day. So elementary, preschool, elementary, middle school, maybe even high school. So that's at least 4 times a day potentially. Sorry, more, 8 times a day. I also wanted to mention, just being right next door, the average time for me to take a left turn out of my driveway, I would say probably takes me, I have to sit there probably anywhere from, sometimes nothing, but at times I've waited literally 6 minutes. So you mentioned 10 seconds. I would say that was probably on the very rare end.
That's the left turn in. Coming out would be over 35 seconds on average.
And also, that goes not to account all the people who are blowing their horns at me. And so I just worry about that aggression on that road because it is a high volume of traffic, it is speedy traffic, and it's people that are going places. They're getting to the highway, they're getting home, and they're not wanting to stop for us to pull in and out of driveways.
Yes. Well, as I pointed out before, your ordinance allows for certain uses that are permitted on this site, and many of those permitted uses we would not be before this board. You would not be here asking these questions if it was a permitted use. We are far less traffic volume than a permitted use on this site. So
I understand what you're saying, and I hear your testimony repeatedly mentioning the previous permits, but I just feel like we're here to discuss this particular permit, and if this project goes forward, how it's going to impact us as a community.
And a D1 variance, a non-permitted use on this site, and how does that affect the master plan and your zoning ordinances? But if your zoning ordinance and your master plan allow for a restaurant use or a tavern or an office building even that generates more traffic than what you're proposing, well then we do comply with the traffic aspects of your zoning ordinance and your master plan.
So are you saying that your testimony is then based on what the proposed use is?
No, my testimony is based on this use, generating 14 trips, but it's fair for me to compare it to, and which is a non-permitted use, which is fair for me to compare it to permitted uses, such as that restaurant and so forth, which generate far more traffic. So your question is, well, what are the impacts of your 36 units should be as it compares to a permitted use on this site? Because we would be before the planning board and not the Board of Adjustment, and traffic impacts for a permitted use are not in the purview of a planning board.
We actually are a permitted use, just want to clarify. We're here because of the
Density, I'm sorry.
Just want to clarify.
You're right, yeah, that's a good point, all right, good point. And I guess, so that goes to my second aspect, that the difference between what we're allowed, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to retract a lot of what I just said, but I did mention before that we are here before a density, more density than what we're allowed, but that difference in what's allowed and versus what we're proposing is a matter of only 6 trips per hour. And that, again, same rationale, however, that those 6 additional trips do not create a significant impact on traffic, and still is far less than what a permitted use would generate.
Well, for me, what I'm hearing is it's still 40% more.
More than what?
So 6 trips.
Oh,
At 14,
sure. Okay.
it's way more than 6 trips.
Okay.
Also, I'll say, just with the tendency, and I understand the study was done in January, is from the people that I encounter, is that companies are requiring people to come back to work. And they're required to come back into the office more days a week. And it's progressively returning back to what we were required to do in terms of commuting pre-COVID. And so I just wonder about this January study and the numbers in terms of traffic. January is also kind of a low traffic month in terms of that area. I mean, if you were there in November, I don't know why it's busier in November, but it's quite trafficy in November.
Christmas time shopping, probably.
And so it's like I said, I've said this last week too, but it's a high volume traffic area. I was told that the traffic is due to some construction, which I can't handle. That has nothing to do with me or this, but it is. I'm just one thing.
Well, that's why, if you heard my testimony, there's 4 sources that we took traffic counts from, and 3 of those sources were pre-COVID. So if we're going to go back from January 2024 to what happened pre-COVID, those are the volumes that I took into account. I took the counts in January 2024, but I put them aside and I took the higher volumes in 2018 from the traffic data we had. And then I bumped it up for 2 years times 1.5% because we see traffic does increase, generally speaking, in the future. So I took all of the measures I think that you would have expected if everybody goes back to work again, which I doubt very much. I mean, we've learned a lot through COVID that, for instance, we had a pre-meeting with Mr. Hale and the group. We didn't have to go into his office, which we would have done in 2018 and met there. And now we're all on Zoom. Zoom is something new that we've all learned to use since COVID. So I think our levels are going to maybe go up a little bit because I agree with you. Some offices have required their employees, but many have not. So I think we've done as best as we could to account for that aspect and be conservative in our assessment.
I would say where we're not going to work, we're ordering DoorDash.
Right, we do.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward? Hearing none, Mr. Hale?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Steiger. I'd like to recall Mr. Lanzafama to now put his planning hat on and address the relief that we're seeking.
Mr. Lanzafama, you were previously qualified, and you're still under oath.
Thank you.
And confirm, again, professional planning license also.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Lanzafama, you testified previously wearing, as we said, your engineering hat. If now you could put your professional planner's hat on. We've said in numerous occasions this is a permitted use, but we're seeking some relief, and if you could address that relief.
Sure. I just took the liberty of, I got to get it a little bit smaller, one extreme to the other. There we go. Okay. I took the liberty of taking an aerial image of the neighborhood, the surrounding area, from the intersection of Milburn Avenue and Vauxhall Road, looking up Vauxhall Road towards the subject property, which is up on the right-hand side. We may have to mark this as A9.
Yeah, I guess that would be
A10?
A8, I believe, right?
A9? I thought we were higher than that.
I said A8, but that was, I think I had, that was Larry's exhibit.
A8.
A8.
What A8 is an aerial image of the surrounding neighborhood showing the buildings in the area, and I thought this was telling because it kind of sets the stage for what we're asking for this evening. The two variances that require us to come before this board is the density and height variance, often referred to as a D5 is the density variance, and a D6 is the height variance. And the densities and the height are a measure of intensity of use. We all acknowledge that we are permitted use, multifamily apartments are permitted use within the NC zone. And the balancing test here is whether or not this site can the zone plan. What you have here is the usual problems that might be associated with a larger density or height is overcrowding on the site, the loss of light, air, and open space along the neighboring properties. And what we have to look at is how did the architect, Mr. Appel, develop this building so it fits into the site and doesn't overwhelm it, at the same time having the increased density. And I think what we have to look at, what's really important, is the case for the property can support the increased density and height. And the first thing we have to look at is that there's sufficient parking on site for all of the units being proposed, not only for the number of units, but for visitors as well. Appropriate accommodations have been made for deliveries, for movement inside, in and out of the site, I should say. We're compliant with the total impervious lot coverage. And when I talked to you earlier about citing the fact that we do need a C variance for the building coverage, it was only to enclose the parking. So in my mind, that benefit substantially outweighs any negative impacts to the zoning plan for the increased coverage. Therefore, in my mind, that is clearly a C2 variance that could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. As a matter of fact, the enclosing of that parking under the building keeps noise levels down, keeps headlight levels hidden, and keeps activity to a minimum, and presents a beautiful facade to the adjoining properties as opposed to an open parking lot. The aesthetic upgrade to the street area, in my mind, is extremely important. And as you can see from the exhibit I put up on the screen, which has been marked as A8, right? A8, the aerial image. You can see the other commercial uses in the area. Granted, this is in Milburn, but these are all larger structures. You have the Milburn Mall immediately across the street, which I believe what we're proposing complements that and helps support that in it continuing as a functioning retail shopping center. Again, back to Mr. Appel's testimony, which I think is really important with regard to the wedding cake design of the building that sets back not just the upper floor, but the floor immediately above the parking deck is set back from the adjoining properties. So providing adequate light, air, and open space. Given the fact that we do need a variance for setback, we have a pinch point of 4 feet, and the normal requirement for this type of use without the retail element is 35 feet. However, if we had a retail element, it would be only 10. But that pinch point occurs at just that one corner of the building, and that the majority of the upper floors do set back a significant amount that do provide light, air, and open space, and does not impact negatively on the adjoining property owners. I believe any other elements, the setback variance for the sign, for example, that too is a C2 variance. It provides for a safe location of the sign to help motorists and deliveries identify the location of the building easily so that they can pull in and service the building, and visitors and tenants alike can identify the location of their driveway. The waivers that we're requesting with regard to parking size and parking setback, I believe are de minimis in nature and would not have any detriment on the public good, that the overall design of the project, with the, again, the parking being in the building, does not have a significant impact on adjoining property owners because they're hidden behind the facade of the building. The introduction of the solid fencing around the perimeter also gives a buffering to the project. As far as some of the other positive elements, the positive criteria, in my mind, I believe that this goes to the general welfare by creating quality housing stock for the residents of Union. Improves aesthetics. It's certainly a beautiful building, as you saw from the rendering. It certainly eliminates the eyesore of the vacant contractor's yard. It promotes conservation of natural resources. It applies smart growth principles by using the compact development design. That is, placing the parking completely under the building, going vertical, as opposed to a bigger footprint. So in my mind, I believe that we have met the burden of proof with regard to the positive criteria. As with regard to the negative criteria, there's no substantial detriment in my mind to the public good. As you heard from the traffic expert, the increased density only generates 6 more trips in the AM and PM peak hours, that we have adequate parking. The proposal will certainly improve the streetscape with, in my mind, no negative impact on the adjoining residential properties. There's no substantial impairment to the 2021 master plan of the township. The plan states under township vision, future growth and development in Union Township will come from the maintenance, revitalization, and redevelopment of existing landscape, providing safe, accessible, and attractive housing options for residents with convenient connection to transit, employment centers, shopping, parks, schools, and other amenities. Here we have the introduction of apartments that will help support the shopping center across the street. You do have bus lines that are available for pickup right on Milburn Avenue, so it's a short walk from the building to those pickup points. The proposal affirms the township's vision of the master plan. That element of future growth and development will come from redevelopment of existing landscape. What they're talking about there is taking these little infill opportunities and taking advantage of them. And here, by allowing the increase in density, you're also getting back more affordable housing units. The proposal allows for the improvement of the neighborhood by eliminating the vacant parcel and advances the purpose of the zone, which again, the purpose of this zone is to permit a mix of retail, service, and residential uses along neighborhood corridors. So in my mind, I believe we met the burden of proof with both the positive and negative criteria, and that the project can move forward without a substantial detriment to the public good or the intent and purpose of your zone plan. Again, you've heard telling testimony from the architect about how the design was developed, and from the traffic consultant who basically feels that there's minimal impact resulting from this additional units and the height being proposed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lanzafama. No further questions at this time, Mr. Chairman?
Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Lanzafama's testimony? Hearing none. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward and question Mr. Lanzafama's testimony? Mr. Bross?
What would you, according to, you said it's minimal, effect on the community.
It's not a substantial impact.
Would you, in terms of an increase to commute time, what would you consider a considerable detriment?
I don't believe I can answer that question. I'd have to kick that one over to Joe. I don't know what the impact of, I can't imagine that the impact of 14 additional cars. Remember, the increased density is what we're talking about, the extra 16 units we're talking about, according to Mr. Steiger's testimony, results in 6 extra trips in the morning and 6 extra trips at night. On a roadway of this size and with that kind of volume, in my mind, doesn't seem to be a significant amount.
Okay. Because according to the census data in Vauxhall, the average commute time for a citizen is 31 minutes. The average national is only 26 minutes, which means we're already 17% above the national average for our standard commute already.
But
So you
commuting
wanna
to where? How do you compare that? What do you
Census
compare?
data.
What do you commute to where? It depends on
Work-
how you're commuting. Are you commuting by
Work-
bus, by
work
rail?
commute. The average work commute for someone going from
Okay.
a 9-to-5 job
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S., according to U.S. Census data, is 26 minutes nationally, 31 minutes in Vauxhall.
Right.
That's already a 17% increase, and we want to increase upon it additionally. How is that
I don't
benefit?
think the addition of 6 cars during the AM peak hour along Vauxhall
Well,
Road.
wasn't it 14?
Well, but what we're talking about is the increased density. Because we would be permitted by right to come in with an application for 20 apartments. And as Mr. Steiger pointed out, we'd be before the planning board. And it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have to go through the exercise of proving that the application is not going to have a negative impact on the community. And in my mind, adding 6 cars, which is the differential.
Didn't we
For-
say 14?
14 was total, right? And
14 an
do I
hour.
have my numbers correct? 14 per hour during the AM peak hour. And the additional 16 apartments results in 6 additional trips. And so that's what you, in my mind, what you have to focus on, is the 6 additional trips, because the other 8 trips are basically allowed by right, by the town zoning and their master planning.
That's all I had, that was the only question.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the board that would like to comment on the application?
And again, we have no further witnesses, but certainly any witnesses that have been testified this evening are here to answer any further questions.
Or any board members with comments on this application? Hearing none. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward and comment on this application? Ms. Kim?
Hi, I'm still Dr. Kim, and I am the business owner next door, but I am also a resident of Union. I live at 2663 Hawthorne Avenue. As a parent and as a resident of Union, my comment about this project and the density is I'm really concerned.
Dr. Kim, could I just ask you to swear or affirm that any testimony you can provide is the truth and the whole truth?
Oh, sorry, my right hand. Yes,
you.
absolutely. What I want to say is, what I've been hearing in our Union Township recently is concern about our schools, the cuts in our schools, and the density issue in town overall. My neighbors are concerned about all the big developments that have come in with Vermilla and here downtown. And this is on Vauxhall, where lots of Union people don't hear a lot about Vauxhall. Some of us don't even know that Vauxhall is part of Union. But our kids in Vauxhall will be going to Union schools. I haven't heard about any plans for new builds for schools. All I've heard about is cuts. As of next school year, I've already heard that a librarian and another teacher has been cut, and that from 36 extracurricular classes per year, it'll be cut in half to 18. We bring in an apartment building with 36 units, and God knows how many children, right? We don't know, single parents, you said, 2, 3-bedroom apartments. How full are our schools and classes going to be? I honestly have hesitation to send my child to public school in Union, and I think that's terrible, because what it's going to bring me to is to move from Union. But like I said, I'm a business owner here, I'm a homeowner here, and I think that the density is an issue. I think that we are already at capacity at our schools, and this is just another thing. Also, the issue with these children going to school, and the reason I kept asking about buses is because Vauxhall kids get bused to all the schools in Union. So this adds a whole traffic component. I start my practice hours at 9 a.m. when patients are coming in, and now there's going to be a school bus stopped out in front, or when I'm going in, and there's going to be a school bus out in front, and I'm going to be waiting. But when I go to turn, there's going to be all this traffic backed up, and how am I going to get through? I'm just going to be sitting there in the middle of Vauxhall Road, blocking the rest of traffic. And again, when I go home later in the day, or to go pick up my own kids, again, 3 o'clock, I have to get out, and now there's going to be school buses stopped there in the road. Where am I going? Where's everyone else going? How are we all getting there? And it's just the volume is so high, and Jerry's a very nice man, and we spoke about his project. I told him my concerns, and the concerns I had mentioned to him was about people living with nothing to do, especially with kids and causing trouble. My building is empty in the evening. There's nobody there. I don't live there. The lights are off, and what are kids going to do but cause mischief? And I said, what is going to be on your property to engage people so that they are not causing this sort of mischief? Honestly, I worried about parkour. Parkour is like a popular thing amongst teenagers to jump off of buildings and rails and fences, to skateboard, with skateboards without, just to jump. And I have an open balcony on that side of my building. And I'm worried about kids trying to throw things to get things up there for entertainment. I'm worried about kids trying to jump up there because it's only on the second story. To me, in my head, it sounds ridiculous, but this is like the world we live in. And I worry about people throwing things out of windows from the building onto my roof because they're 2 floors above me. So these are my concerns. So I thank you for listening, and I thank Jerry for reaching out. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Mr. Patterson, you had your hand up?
I just ask you to swear or affirm that any testimony you can provide is the truth and the whole truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask the board questions, or can I ask you questions? Is that something that?
You can ask general questions, yeah, if we can,
Okay,
I'm the
thank you.
attorney for the board, I'll help you if I can.
Yeah, sure. They're asking for, I think it's 7 variances. Is that what they're asking for, you know?
Well, there's a number of variances. There's the
Yes.
density and the
How
height
many?
issue and some bulk, they call them bulk variances.
How many?
And then waivers. Waivers are the parking size of the
Not
space.
not waivers, variances.
I know, there's both.
They're
There's
both, okay, how many?
variances.
How many was it?
I think there's 5.
I'm asking, I guess my question is that if they were to reduce the amount of units they want to put there, would they still need the same amount of variances? And
No, the project would change with adjustments, but this is what the board is considering, and it has to weigh the benefits over the detriments. That's as the planner just summarized as the expert witness. That's the key. That's what the board has to do.
okay, so it's a possibility if they would reduce it to 30 units, then
That's
things
not
would change, right?
That's not what's before them.
I'm just asking. That would change. Thing would change, right?
It would change, if they had 20, they wouldn't even be here.
Okay,
They
thank you.
could do that. That was the point that the traffic engineer and the planner were making. Then the number of trip units, there would be no discretion to tell them. They can go to the building department and get permits to build that
Okay.
if they want.
So waivers and variance are the same?
No, waivers are they're not in the zoning part of the code. They're in the site design,
Okay.
the size of the parking spaces, the landscaping, et cetera. So they've replaced some of the things, for example, the waiver on 4-foot buffer with a solid fencing, and they try to do other amenities, and that's what the board has to weigh. They have to say, does that satisfy the criteria legally under the state municipal land use law to allow them to grant the relief?
Okay. Do the police department make a report to you guys?
Did who?
They do? And the fire department?
Correct.
Okay.
We have
Thank
that.
you.
It's all part of the record. Yep.
Thank you.
Police and fire.
Mr. Barros?
Can I just ask you to swear or affirm that any testimony you might provide is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just want to say before the board, I know I spoke last week, this is important enough to me to come out 3 weeks, 3 times, I should say, to make sure that my voice was heard. I don't think that the variances benefit the community. As a member who lives across the street, who's going to be affected by the construction, the building, who's going to have to walk and see it every day, that's going to have to be affected every day on my commute. I have to drive 2 hours of commute every day to drop my daughter off at daycare and to pick her up. I have to drive through one of the busiest roads where just getting onto Vauxhall Road to get to Valley Street can take me, 10, 15 minutes sometimes just waiting at one turn. It's heartbreaking. I worry that this is going to exacerbate traffic. I worry that the density in the area cannot handle it, and it's not an area that we can gamble and afford to take that risk. It's the main intersection for people getting access to 78 and 24 and 124. And I worry that if it were to build, it would be reason for me and my family to say we don't want to be a part of the community anymore. It's that detrimental that it's not something I personally would want in my neighborhood. I love the idea that they want to do, affordable housing, but for a 4-story luxury apartments, I don't think that there's enough good coming out of this project to warrant it. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, Mr. Hale, would you like to make some
Yes.
closing remarks?
Yes, just briefly, we appreciate the board hearing us and having us come back on numerous occasions, and appreciate the public coming out. And again, what I'd like to focus on, we are permitted use. Yes, we are seeking the density and height variance, but I think that the concerns, first, with respect to traffic, I think we've gone through that many times, and well, it might benefit had the childcare been there for perhaps your commute, you could go right around the corner, but you heard the trip generation associated with the childcare is, I think it was over 100 trips per hour as opposed to the 14 that multifamily residential. And if it was other permitted uses, compared to, again, multifamily, a bar, a restaurant, convenience store, car wash, all of those bringing truck traffic, noise, many hours of operation. So I think that when you compare the quality multifamily residential housing that's proposed, there's been clear justification for the relief that we're seeking. And again, respect Dr. Kim's comments, but with respect to the impact, certainly quality multifamily with parking underneath and a beautifully designed building, adequate site circulation, comments addressing police. Well, there were no negative comments from police, comments addressing fire. Certainly having quality multifamily residential as opposed to, again, if you had a convenience store and other things, where it could possibly attract people, having people come from out of the area as opposed to residents in the area. I think that, and managing trash pickup, having it inside and having the chutes as opposed to, again, a commercial establishment, a convenience store that might have surface parking in the back of the lot next to people's homes, next to other businesses. So I think that all in all, the proofs have been established. It will be a great asset to the Vauxhall community and certainly fits in much better than other uses that could go here. So we appreciate the board, we appreciate the public, recognize their concerns, and that's why we've worked long and hard with the town, with the board professionals, and having, again, the community outreach meeting. So we would look forward to the board approving of this application, and again, appreciate your time.
I believe at this time we could conference this. Mr. Bentavegna, would you like to begin?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at last week's meeting, myself and this board, we had a chance to hear a lot of the concerns from the public. Some of those concerns were drainage, fire issues, overflow parking, traffic pattern, neighborhood parking. That was some of the stuff that I wrote down. I want to say tonight, all the experts' testimonies that were given were very accurate and justified all these concerns. I want to say the building is very eye-catching. From my perspective, I see this project bringing no negative impact to the area, so I'll be voting yes for tonight.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also agree. It is a permitted use. It's an attractive building. There's no substantial detriment to the neighborhood, substantial, compared to what other permitted uses would have brought in. And, I also appreciate the effort to go to the fire department and work with them and work with our local officials and to make things right. So I too will be voting yes, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Martins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the testimony that was provided today, and after listening to the public's comments and questions, I do think that the variances are well justified. This is not a negative impact to the site. It is a very well-designed project, well-suited use compared to the other uses that are permitted on the site. So I will be voting yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I feel that this is a good use for this location. I mean, there's a variety of uses there already. I think the negatives outweigh, the positives outweigh the negative. If you compare it to some of the things that could go there, as my colleague had indicated, could be bars, car washes, restaurants, and I think that would generate a more negative aspect when it comes to traffic and noise. I don't see any detriment to the public here. And just looking at the rendering, I think it aesthetically will improve the area a lot. And I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Scott?
Good evening, everyone. It's a lot that we took in with this, even going back to last week and listening to all the comments from the residents of Vauxhall. I do think that the building itself is aesthetically pleasing, but I don't think that we could minimize what the residents were saying in terms of the traffic. However, I think like looking at redevelopment, construction, traffic, all of that is just a new normal for us. And it is saturated. It is a whole lot of building going on. There's a lot of construction going on. And I think we're all impacted on that. Like, there's traffic everywhere. So we're not getting away from that. It's not like we could take the cars and put them in our house with us, because there's just so many cars, and what do we do with them? But I did hear your concerns, and I appreciate you coming out both weeks to express your concerns, because it is something that is going to directly impact you guys more so than anyone else. And so, the building, I think, you know, the architect did an excellent job, you know, talking about what the building, the amenities of the building, you know, and all the luxuries that go with the building, even though we talk about affordable housing being a part of that, how affordable will it be? So, you know, I hear the comments of the residents, but I also heard the professionals, and I think they did an excellent job describing the building and what the building will definitely bring to that particular community. So I will also be voting yes.
Mr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to commend the professionals on the manner in which they defended this application. I did hear the pros and the cons, the pros from the professionals and the cons from the community. And there was something that was said that stuck with me from the beginning, and that is best use of this property. Considering all the things that can go there, I do agree that this is the best use, particularly with the concept or the component of the affordable housing and the potential to impact in a positive manner the economics of the area. Mr. Chairman, I do plan to vote yes.
Thank you. As for myself, based on the plans and testimony presented before the board this evening, and the witnesses did a great job. Building is a beautiful building, but I believe I know the applicant has proved and justified both the negative and the positive criteria for the proposed use of this property. Therefore, I will vote yes for this application. At this time, I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the variance applicable to this application and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's decision.
Second motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Bentavegana?
Yes.
Ms. Scott? Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
And Mr. Champy?
Yes.
June 5th will be the resolution of approval.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank you, members of the board, board professionals, and the public for your time this evening.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
And have a great holiday weekend.
I move that the board, there being no further business coming before the board this evening, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.